You're probably asking yourself, was any of the Civil War fought on water? And the answer is, kinda. Yeah, it got involved. Water showed up. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the blockade, Jake. We're talking about blockade runners. We're talking about the first submarine sinking in history. This is Laughs from the Past. Let's go. All right, guys, thank you very much. I believe this is episode, is it 7 or 8? 7?
Of the Civil War?
Yeah.
Damn Civic War.
The Civil War. What are we at? This is something I should know. We're at episode 8. Wow, Jake, only 2 left after this.
Wow.
Only 2 left. If you're new to the show, you're coming in on the 8th episode of season 2. Go back and start over, or just listen, because maybe you're super interested in the Hunley and blockades and shit like that. But how this show works is I'm telling Jake a story from the past. He hasn't heard it before, usually, and he's reacting. We're talking.
Yes.
Seeing some things through. Now, the Civil War. You remember who was involved?
East meets West, next.
And it's on land. So what are the first things that the U.S. did, the federal government, the North,
Sure.
is they started this proposal, which was called like the Anaconda Plan, which was basically the image is like a snake going down the coast of the southeast coast, then going around Florida, all those states around Texas, up the Mississippi River. And they were cutting off supplies.
Nice.
The South really didn't think this through. They thought it was they thought it was going to be quick, or I don't know what they thought, because they didn't have the textile places. They didn't have the manufacturers. They couldn't live on their own. And the North immediately cut them off from the outside with this blockade.
Right.
No shipping could come in and out. No food. No cloth, no uniforms, no metal, no wood, just no nothing. It sucked. Right. And then, they had nothing from the North as well. And we talked about in episode 1 that the foreign countries didn't want to get involved. So the South was kind of fucked. So what we're talking about today is what attempts they made to get past the blockade.
Okay.
And the blockade started out kind of light, but as the war kept going, Lincoln kept putting more ships and more ships and more ships. So if there's a blockade, Jake, do you have any blockade questions? Like, what are you picturing? What are you thinking?
Blockade on a river in a van down by the river. Picturing boats. Boats blocking the water. I mean, what else is to a blockade, really? I don't know. I guess I've never been a part of one. Yeah.
You haven't. I know for a fact you haven't. Yeah, I think it's just boats spread out. They block off the ports heavily, and then I think they cover a certain amount of land. They used to they'd fire flares if they thought they saw someone, so everyone can converge on that flare.
Sure.
And then, so it worked pretty well. The Confederacy by the end of the war was pretty much out of supplies. Food was scarce, all that. How the Confederacy went about it is immediately they sent people to Britain, right?
Sure.
And they were basically their suppliers. They would buy eggs, bacon, cloth, guns, whatever, and then they would send it to the Nassau, Jamaica, all those places, and then try to. It's called running the blockade, is what it's called. And they try to run it through, and it was 7 out of every 10 attempts was successful at first, which is actually not that bad.
Yeah,
but it was super risky because if you're unsuccessful, you're fucked.
Right.
My favorite story, and this is the main one we're going to do. A little tip about running the blockade. There was famous blockade runners named John Wilkinson, Now, I'm sure there's cool stories. There's a book about him, and I'm planning on reading it now, but I haven't read it. But he bought his own flare gun, and as soon as he would approach the blockade, like the length out that he knew they were, he would fire his flare gun in the opposite direction of him.
Classic.
Pretty good trick.
Yeah.
He never got caught, that dude.
It's not bad.
Not bad. But we're gonna talk about the H.L. Hunley. Okay? Dude, this submarine, one of the first submarines, I'm guessing. I don't know if it was the first submarine, but it had to be. It is a shoebox.
Okay.
Like a death trap, Jake. Are you looking it up? You should
Well,
look
first
up.
I'm looking up first submarine, and I'm seeing 1776, and it basically looks like a guy in an egg. What's the name of this submarine?
Hunley. Look up the Hunley submarine, and I will try to describe it for our listeners. It's basically a tube. I think it was like 40 feet long or something like that. It's only 4 feet tall, so it's a tube cylinder, right?
Yep.
It's basically when you go to the playground and you're a kid and there's those tubes or Chuck E. Cheese that you have to go through, and you can kind of like crouch down and put your back up against the wall and your feet on the bottom, and you're like in that hunched position. So that's what this was. And there was 8 spots. 7 people had so bicycle pedals basically, but hand pedals, and they were just rowing, right? Like a crank. And there's a fan at the back end. And then at the front is a guy, or he's at the front of their back. He's navigating. That's what this was. Just a shoebox of death.
Yeah, that does not look like a good time.
Not one bit.
H.L. Hunley Submarine Museum in North Charleston, South Carolina, if you guys are there.
Yes, and we'll get to that because it's actually probably really cool if you're from South Carolina and want to see it, and if you didn't know about this already. So the guy invented it was Hunley, right?
Yep.
So they tested a bunch of places, and they're going to use it in Mobile, Alabama, but then they're like, all right, it's working. Let's go down to Charleston. Because
just run it.
Yeah, let's go. They're going to sink a ship. So the main goal, actually, the first couple attempts, the submarine would submerge under the water, and they were pulling an explosive device behind them.
Okay, I like that.
They were going to go underneath the ship, and then the string with the explosive device behind them was going to make contact after they passed, blow up the ship. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Okay. So here is the first attempt. This was the crew. Michael Caine, Nicholas Davis, Frank Doyle, Charles Hasker, John Kelly, Lieutenant John A. Payne, Absalom Williams, and William Robinson. Okay. You got Absalom Williams and William Robinson. That might have been confusing. 2 Williams.
Warning, Will Robinson.
The H.L. Hunley arrived in Charleston on August 12th, 1863, accompanied by James McClintock. That's a fun name. And Gus Whitney, one of the investors in the sub. The crew quickly began testing the Hunley in the Charleston harbor. Frustrated by McClintock's pace, the Confederates seized the Hunley submarine and turned it over to Lieutenant John Payne, a Navy man assigned to the CSS Chicora. So like, give us that thing.
Yeah, we got this. Don't worry about it.
Let's see a test run. Oh, okay, good. We got it. We're good.
Oh yeah, submarine. Yep, got it.
On August,
just pedal.
4, 5, 7 guys in there in that shoebox of death? Yeah, just pedal. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
On August 29th, the Hunley was moored at Fort Johnson, preparing to depart for its first attack on the blockade when it suddenly sank to the bottom. There are conflicting stories of what happened. Some claimed the wake of a passing ship flooded into the Hunley's open hatches, filling it up with water to sink it. Others claimed the mooring lines of another ship became tangled on the sub, pulling it onto its side until its hatches were underwater. Whatever happened, the result was the same. The Hunley sank immediately, taking 5 of her crew down to their deaths. Payne, who was standing atop the sub, jumped into the water and was rescued. William Robinson escaped through the aft hatch, and Charles Hasker, trapped by the hatch cover, rowed the sub to the bottom before freeing himself and swimming to the surface. So you got 8 people went down in the first attempt, 5 died.
Not bad.
They didn't
Good ratio.
They didn't do anything. Did you catch the reason? One of the reasons they think it happened?
Well, so I was okay with the reasons until I heard that 3 of them escaped. The 3 of them couldn't put it together why it sank?
Yeah, I guess they didn't know. Well, 1 was on top. Sounds like 2 were on top.
Right.
I think maybe what happened was the hatch thing, but they were embarrassed. Like, it couldn't have been that. We made sure to close the hatches. It was it was a rope.
You think we were in the submarine with the door open? Come on.
That's bad, man. The door's open on the submarine, a wake comes through and just drowns you.
Hey, remember when you guys, Confederacy, you guys took my submarine. How'd it go? Oh, we sank it instantly. Oh! How about that?
That the Union ship of the blockade got a kill. Didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we took down a boat of 8 dudes. How'd you do it? I just rode past him. Our wake got him. You killed him with your wake? Were they swimming?
Yeah, we left a line out, sunk a ship. What?
So that was the first attempt. 5 out of 8 died. Okay,
not bad.
What did they do? On October 15th, Horace Hunley scheduled a demonstration of his boat. Oh, hold on, I forgot this part. It took weeks to retrieve the submarine, and in that time, Horace Hunley arrived in Charleston and demanded the submarine be returned to him. General P.G.T. Beauregard granted the request, and Hunley sent for a crew of men from Park and Lyons Machine Shop in Mobile. So it had been built in Mobile and tested in Mobile.
Right.
And that crew was supposed to run it. But like we said, the Confederate just seized it and like, we got this.
Yeah.
And clearly they didn't have it.
No, don't worry. We know how to work a machine, okay?
So Hunley's like, you dumb idiots. Like,
get me my submarine.
Yeah. But Hunley wasn't even a Confederate. He was, I think, just an inventor.
Yeah.
Just hanging out. The war's about to do. Let's invent some shit. So he scheduled a demonstration of his boat in the Charleston harbor. After they took it out, they got it up and all that shit.
Sure.
He announced his vessel would dive beneath the CSS Indian Chief and surface on the other side. Once the submarine disappeared beneath the waves, it was not seen again for weeks. Bad weather delayed the search efforts, and divers did not recover the H.L. Hunley until November 7th. It was found deep in the harbor channel with its bow buried in the mud and its stern still floating. Chains and ropes were used to hoist it to the surface and place it on the dock, so it sunk twice now. When its hatches were opened, there was a gruesome sight with the crew members still seemingly frozen in time. Thomas Park was found with his head in the aft conning tower. Horace Hunley, still clutching a candle, was in the forward conning tower. Rescuers reported the forward ballast tank valve had been left open, allowing the submarine to fill with water. So again, they just forgot to close something.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is human error or not, but it seems like human error.
Seems like it is, right? Like they're cruising around the harbor, like they're doing the pre-submarine, like the goodbye waves.
Yeah.
Like we're not going under yet. And then a boat definitely came by, the wave came up, water comes in, and they can't save it. It like twist the submarine and then it's just taken in water.
Yeah. So the wrench used to operate the seacock was found on the floor of the submarine, leading them to theorize Hunley had either forgotten to close the valve or lost the wrench and was unable to close it. The sub's keel weights had been partially loosened, which suggests the crew realized they were in danger, but not in time to save them. So there was weights on the bottom of this thing, and when they found they needed to resurface, they'd release the weights so that they were buoyant and float up.
Okay.
You know, like lime.
Yeah.
So now there are 2 attempts, and they are at a 13 out of 16 death rate.
Yeah.
5 out of 8 died the first time. 8 out of 8 died the second time.
Tough.
It's bad times. 2 tragedies had now befallen.
Tough to go on the third trip.
Well, you know who went on the third trip? Lieutenant George E. Dixon, Arnold Becker, Corporal J.F. Carlson, Frank Collins, C. Lumpkin, Miller.
Miller.
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so just Miller. I guess they don't know his other names. James A. Wicks and Joseph Ridgeway. And this writes, 2 tragedies had now befallen the H.L. Hunley. The sinkings and visible recovery efforts that followed had created quite a stir in Charleston. It was not long before Rear Admiral John Dahlgren, the head of the Union blockading fleet, learned of the diving submarine from Confederate deserters. Wait, come on, guys. Just tattle on the submarine.
Yeah. No, I'm okay with tattling on the submarine because they're like, okay, we want to bail on the South. I think we're going to lose this war. What's some info we can give the North to show we're cool and join their side so they don't kill us? Dude, tell them about the submarine. The submarine's never going to work anyways. We actually might save Confederate lives if we tell them about the submarine.
Yeah, they're telling they're like, we did learn how to talk, Jimmy. They just succeeded from the Confederacy or whatever. They went back to the North. They deserted. They're like, you guys won't believe they're over there killing themselves.
Yeah.
They're trying to go underwater to kill you, and they have killed 13 of their own guys.
You might want to give them another submarine.
Send one over.
Yeah.
Just get some like underwater periscopes, the opposite, and just watch them die. Oh, he went over there. He was like, no, you guys killed him with your wake. Let him know.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 tragedies had befallen it. In response, Dahlgren ordered his blockading squadron to anchor in shallow water, hang ropes and chains over the sides as defense measures, and deploy picket craft to keep torpedo-bearing boats away. These clever tactics were also the genesis of anti-submarine countermeasures. There's a lot of things developing here in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Confederate General Beauregard was reluctant to put Hunley back in service. You think? He wrote, "It is more dangerous to those who use it than the enemy."
Yup.
Bing.
Hot take.
Beauregard, you got it.
Nailed it.
Still, the submarine had persuasive backers, including Lieutenants George Dixon and William Alexander, both of whom passionately believed she could be successful in breaking the blockade. Even they knew the Hunley had to be modified if she were to be successful. Come on, guys. Yeah, of course.
Yup.
Even they knew.
It can't sink and kill everyone.
The Union's anti-submarine moves, coupled with the difficulty of controlling the Hunley's depth and pitch while submerged, led them to completely rethink the mode of attack. How could they see and shit? Like, there's no lights. There's no electricity.
Maybe they had open air windows. That was the problem.
I don't know. I don't even.
I'm guessing they weren't going deep under the water.
Yeah. Well,
unless they sank it and died.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They had candles. That guy was holding a candle.
How'd the candle work?
Light it.
That makes sense. Towing an explosive device was abandoned, and a more direct approach. A spar with the torpedo attached to its tip was mounted to the lower bow of the submarine. In this design, the plan was to ram the spar into the hull of an enemy ship, detonating the torpedo either on contact or by a trigger-pulled device. It was perhaps efficient, but with a 16-foot spar, it left the crew dangerously close to the explosion. So now they're
that's not going to work.
Now they're swimming up, and they're going to stab a ship, and then they're going to change direction of their paddling or whatever.
You're just kamikazeing.
Basically, it's a suicide mission. Wasn't supposed to be. With the dangers of the submarine well known, a new courageous volunteer crew was selected and put under the command of Lieutenant Dixon. Soon the vessel would be ready to carry us out. There's no way this was volunteer. This was you know, when the cop looks at you and like, I got to give someone a ticket. Who's it going to be? And then everyone looks around forever, and then everyone looks at one guy, and that guy's like, they're like, you're going to do it, right? You're going to volunteer, right? You're volunteering. It's you. And then he's like, I volunteer to go in the submarine that just killed 13 people.
Yeah.
I guess you guys are volunteering me to volunteer? Okay. This sucks.
Like an 80% kill rate. Yeah.
I guess I'm volunteering for that because you guys are forcing me to.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Let me see below. Captain George Dixon and his volunteer crew worked aboard the Hunley an average of 4 nights a week between December 1863 and the end of January. So for a month, 4 nights a week. So about 12 days. 16 days. When the weather became too rough to venture into the ocean, on many of those trips, the submarine got close enough to the blockade ships to hear Union soldiers singing on the picket boats, but they never got the chance to attack. Dixon wrote to a friend expressing frustration with the conditions that stopped them from making an attack on the blockade. So this is actually kind of good news. They've tried, and they're like going in there like, we can't do it, and they leave. So they're successfully like using it.
We're getting there.
Yeah. On a moonlit night in February of 1864, the crew of the Hunley was given the calm sea they had waited for and embarked on their ambitious attack. The target was the USS Housatonic, one of the Union's mightiest and newest sloops of war. Sloops of war, huh?
Mm.
The Hunley approach was stealth, and by the time they were spotted, it was too late. At about 8:45 p.m., several sailors on deck of the USS Housatonic reported seeing something on the water just a few hundred feet away. The officer on deck thought it might be a porpoise coming up to blow.
Sure.
All excited.
Yeah, let's see. Come on.
Hey!
Let's see that dolphin.
Who's got bread? Who's got bread? But then they realized this was no porpoise. The alarm sounded and the sailors fired their guns, the bullets pinging off the metal hull of the Hunley. I'd read on a different article that they were advised not to fully submerge, like just kind of ride at the surface this time.
Okay.
Below the surface, the spar torpedo detonated and the explosion blew a hole in the ship. The Housatonic sank in less than 5 minutes, causing the death of 5 of its 155 crewmen, which is, the same amount of people that died in the first attempt of the Hunley.
First test.
They did blow up the ship, though, so like it did work.
Right.
Which is kind of cool.
But it's a blockade, so there's a bunch of other ships. So the 5 that drowned just didn't get to the other ships in time.
Yes, but I mean, it did work. Like if they're now like, okay, let's perfect this. We're doing it.
So did the submarine get back?
Nearly 45 minutes later, a Union sailor claimed he saw a blue light on the water, and some speculate this was the last reported sighting of the Hunley for more than a century. One record indicates Dixon had promised the troops at Battery Marshall, if successful, he would signal to shore by showing 2 blue lights. The Confederates on Sullivan Island say they saw the agreed-upon signal and lit a fire to guide the Hunley home. Pause real quick. Here's how much of ignorant I am to the times. How are they shining blue lights? What do you just put blue paper over a lantern?
Shining blue lights from the ocean.
I would guess they had blue paper put over a lantern.
Yeah, reflective, something like that. I don't know.
So it disappeared, but people say they saw the blue light. So they were like, I think they made it, but then they never heard from the people ever again.
No.
So no one knew forever, Jake. Want to know when it was discovered what happened?
When was it discovered what happened?
In 1995.
Okay.
They found the Hunley.
Nice.
Underwater. 20 feet away from where it hit the Housatonic. they got blown up in the explosion.
I'm shocked.
I mean, sorry that I'm laughing at people that died. It was a long time ago. And it's a crazy plan. So now the Hunley, do the math for me. 21 deaths inside of the Hunley and 3 survivors.
So, yeah, the first trip was the most successful trip.
Because 3 people survived.
21 out of 24 dead. The 3 guys that survived, that's kind of cool.
Kind of. There were that survived and they just went down and like explored and then came up, but they didn't.
You had an 87.5% chance of death going on the HL Hunley.
That's why they made them volunteer.
On the last 2 trips, though, it was 100%. 16 to 16.
Oh, boy. So in 2000, they brought the Hunley to its surface. They found the remains of people in there, which both eerily creeps me out, but piques my interest.
Right.
It had to be deteriorated. I think they just found teeth and bones, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was preserved and perfectly. That'd be amazing.
Nah, I don't think that's how it works. Yeah, I mean,
no, it's impossible, but imagine.
We're talking like 130 years. But yeah, the fact that you could still find anything, kind of crazy.
So that's where you said the museum, they have it there.
Yeah, Charleston, South Carolina's #1 historic tourist attraction.
You should go check it out, which is pretty haunting, man. It's literally a death trap. Literally,
it's got to be. I want to go to the museum.
You do?
Because I mean, how much can it say? Like, does it? Like, museums are usually, showing off how impressive something was.
Well, not history. A lot of history museums are sad museums. I'm sure they have like the life of everyone that was on there, the inventor.
Yeah.
Some cool stuff they found inside. They found inside a coin that saved one of the people's lives, and one of the soldiers' lives. He must have got shot and hit this coin, so he etched onto the coin like "my life preserver," and they found that inside the Hunley.
How about that?
I don't think they tried anymore. I'm not positive, but I think they said, okay, that's done.
We had a really good run.
It was fun while it lasted.
Well, they probably couldn't find it.
Yeah, but they could have tried to build another one, I guess. Well, no, the inventor died in the second one. He was down there with them.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what the strategy was. They blockade runners the other way kept going. But the blockade was a big part of the war that I'm sure a lot of people who don't study, like, we're not making this podcast for historians. We're making this podcast for everyday people who enjoy wild tales. And I think those people, so you are the audience basically of this podcast.
Yeah.
Did you ever even think about like the blockade or how the South got its stuff? You know what I mean? Like, I never thought about that.
Yeah, not really. I guess when you say all the factories are in the north, it kind of makes sense. I don't want to say this in a rude way, but I mean, that's them taking the submarine that first trip, and they had the most survivors, so shout out. But I mean, that's such a Southern hold my beer moment. Like, we don't need your crew to run the submarine. We got this. And that's been making me laugh. I think the other thing, I guess I've considered it, but I don't know. I guess when we talked earlier and you said that all the other countries tapped out, I guess I kind of assumed the South had a lot of self-sustaining stuff, but they didn't. So and probably another big reason they lost the war was they didn't have supplies.
Yeah, and in the first episode we said that the Britain did help build 2 ships that ended up being Confederate ships, and they got in trouble for that. They paid back all the damages. So I read up on that. It was someone from the Confederacy went there to try to commission the building of ships, but they wouldn't do it because they had to be neutral. So he commissioned them under his name as personal merchant ships. And then as soon as he got past British waters, he fixed them with guns and all that stuff. But I mean, I think the British were like, "Oh, who's this for? Oh, it's just you. Oh, wink, wink, nod, nod." because they did
Right.
end up paying the U.S. afterwards reparations.
How about that?
The other ship that was invented for the war was the ironclads. Google the USS Monitor, Jake.
Right. I feel like I've heard of these before. I actually, while I was over here hearing kind of key words, I looked up old Ironsides because I knew it was something like this. I remember the ironclads.
Yeah, they're bizarre looking. So they were on the river, and basically they're like they are.
Like a floating fort, it looks like.
Well, they're right on water level, like
Right.
right on water level, and there's just a big iron circle in the middle. I don't actually. Maybe I can do this on on our wrap up episode. I can find out some more facts because I haven't researched the USS Monitor. I mean, I've watched things on it, but I can't just recite it from my brain right now. But
No,
those are pretty wild ships.
I think it's funny. I mean, this is kind of where I thought it was going because this is something they talked about the ironclads in history classes for sure. But yeah, kind of.
I do know
ridiculous.
that the Union, the Confederacy built their ironclad, and it was called the Virginia, and they were on their way to battle at the blockade, right?
Right.
And then the Union was like, "Oh, let's get the Monitor," and the two ironclad ships met in battle, kind of like battle bots.
I was just gonna say that I remembered that, and that's exactly what I was thinking from history class because I remember sitting there being like, "Whoa!" So each side created basically the first ironclad, and they met up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's nuts.
So it was a rotating gun on top of basically, if you break it down, what it looks like is like a 2x4 rolling along the river with a rotating gun in the middle, but done way bigger, obviously.
Right.
And this says that when the two ironclads met in the middle, they fought to a draw, just bouncing shots off each other, and then went away. And the Virginia was later destroyed to keep it out of Union hands, and the Monitor sunk in a storm off North Carolina. And the Union went on to build 50 more Monitor ironclads, which were invaluable to the combat on rivers and at sea.
But we got them.
And these were basically put wooden ships to death. They killed them.
Yeah.
All the new inventions. The Civil War spawned so much new inventions and technology and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh, even the submarine that sinks itself.
That damn submarine, man. How much does it suck to be in there?
It's not a good time.
And while you're in there, you're just working.
Yeah.
What would that workout be? Like an arm, shoulder, trap, just all upper body?
Yeah, I'm thinking shoulder, tricep. Yeah.
Got to throw your back out too because you're just jerking down to.
It's not a good time.
Not a good time.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Imagine if they did bike pedals instead of the arm things, though. They were just sitting there on a bicycle.
Yeah, I think it'd be more fun.
Bicycles weren't even invented yet, so.
Good cardio.
All right, that is a little bit about the Hunley, the blockade, and the war on the waterfront. Interesting part of the war, I think.
Yeah, definitely a dynamic that probably gets overlooked.
Yeah, because they all died. It is cool that they pulled that thing out of the water.
Yeah.
They didn't know how. Then when they found it, they're like, well, who owns this? Because it's a country that's not around anymore, owned it. Can we get sued for using it or ruining it? Should we just leave it as a burial? Like the Arizona and Pearl Harbor? Or what's going to be inside of it? And eventually it took years for them after they found it. But they thought that looters would come or people would come and do things they didn't want. Which is always a great reason. Well, if I don't do it, bad guys are going to do it.
Yeah. We're going to do it before the bad guys get here.
Yeah. But
smart.
I'd go see it. It was probably be pretty scary or weird to look inside there and so many people died inside of it.
Scary and weird. That's my niche.
That's his niche. That was Laughs from the Past. We got 2 episodes left of the Civil War. Then we're going to take a break for Christmas and New Year's. We're going to come back and just kind of tidy up the season, more tidbits, talk about what's next for Laughs from the Past, which we'd love all your input on. If you're listening, leave a review, tweet at us at johnboy_, at Talkin' Jake. Because for after season 2 ends, we don't have a plan right now. We might take a break for a little. We could go back to random episodes about whatever. We could do season 3 about another theme. But we want your feedback to figure out what our plan is. So if you have feedback, let us know. And that's about the end of the show. All right. Thank you guys very much for listening. This was Laughs from the Past. Rate, subscribe, review if you want to. That would be cool. See you later.